And thank you for staying with us. And at this point, once again, let's introduce our guest for today, who happens to be Babaraji Fashola, son, the Honorable Minister of Power, Works and Housing. He is in our Lagos studios. Good evening, Honorable Minister, and welcome to Weekend File.
Good evening to you and good evening to Nigerians, and compliments of the season.
We would like to ask you to do an assessment of the power sector, a brief assessment of the power sector. Are you satisfied with the current state of affairs of the sector?
I think before I respond, I would also like to use this opportunity to send my message of condolence to the Shagari family, to the government and people of Sokoto, for the passing of President Shehu Shagari, and may his soul rest in peace. May God grant his family and the people of Sokoto, especially Shagari, to bear the fortitude of his loss.
Let's go to the assessment I'd like you to do for a start.
Satisfaction, we are dealing with human beings. The more power you produce every day, the more people that are being born who need power, the more people that are getting into business who need power, the more latent demand that comes. But when one takes stock, I think the point to make is that we have walked our talk, we have fulfilled our promise. And it's important to benchmark power, not just as power electricity itself. It is an economic enabler. And that is why it is no accident that this government is committed to ensuring that there's incremental power, there's steady power, and inevitably uninterrupted power, because we are committed to enabling business to be competitive, to be efficient, to sustain growth, and to produce jobs for manufacturing, for agri, not just production, but also processing and packaging and storage and so on. All of these are part of the fundamentals for driving economic growth. And that's why this government is committed not only to power as an enabler, but also to infrastructure as an enabler of business and job creation and economic growth.
All right, sir. The Mambilla hydropower station is a major project, which the present administration is working hard to get off the ground. But there was a report recently that it's being stalled. What was the contract all about? And of course, is there any problem or challenge between government and, of course, the contractor?
Well, I think that first, Mambilla hydropower project is not just a power project. It is also an economic driver. It is an investment in infrastructure. And the context is to understand first that it is $5.7 billion. I can't recall in the short term when Nigeria dedicated that kind of money to any one project. It would take almost 6 years to construct. During the construction, it will require 18 million bags of cement. It will require 18 million tons of aggregates, sand, stone, and all of those things. It will require 42,000 tons of steel. At the moment, not less than 116 Nigerian companies have expressed interest in participating. Shipping companies, insurance companies, transport companies, logistic companies, security companies. This is the way to create jobs. Over 6 years, there will be shipping, there will be banking, there will be importation, there will be logistics, transportation. That is what Mambilla signifies, and that is what President Buhari is committed to doing. So just constructing it alone is going to create economic opportunities for jobs over 6 years. At its conclusion, it would provide 3,050 megawatts of power to what we have. It will provide irrigation opportunities for agric in Taraba and parts of the northeast. That is Nigeria's perhaps most richest agricultural treasure. That is where Highland tea comes from. But a lot more value can go into Highland tea and so many other produce. You can plant flowers, you can export flowers from that region. So that is what it's about. It's taken us 40 years with all sorts of backs and forth. So first of all, in terms of size and scope, it is a challenging project. Now, in terms of this contract, I think it is important also to say that Nigeria's economy has been challenged by people who in the past have, for want of a better word, acted as commission agents, brokerage agents, 10%ers, who really don't add value. So who is this contractor who claims that he has a contract? What has he built before to be entrusted with a $5 billion project? In any event, he has gone to court, he has gone to arbitration on a contract that, in my opinion as a lawyer, has no basis, because the basis of that contract is that the Federal Executive Council, the highest decision-making body in this country, met on the 21st of May, 2003, to consider a proposal by this company called Sunrise whatever. And when they considered the memo presented by the Minister for Power then, they decided that the memo should be stepped down. So no decision to award a contract was taken at that meeting. They gave the minister directives to go and do other things and come back with the memorandum. That was on the 21st of May, 2003. On 22nd of May, the same minister who was told to step down the contract wrote a letter to this Sunrise saying that the Federal Executive Council had approved the contract that was not approved. And within 24 hours, this contractor purported to accept that contract. 6 months later, after that minister was changed, the new Minister for Power then said, look, there was no agreement to this effect. I'm cancelling the contract. That is the contract that this contractor has carried around since 2003, claiming under the PDP administration that he has a contract. Now, what have we done? There are 3 Chinese companies that he brought. One different company for one administration, one for each administration, and they were all in court when we came. We got them out of court. We got them to sign a joint venture agreement after President Buhari took this issue with President Xi Jinping in his 2016 China visit. And they agreed to deal government to government, Nigerian government with Chinese government using Chinese contractors to be funded by China Exim Bank. So in a government to government relationship, where is the middleman's rule? So it's in arbitration, and I think the point to note that Nigerians must know, this purported contractor, one Mr. Alenu Adeson, I go back to his history, and you will find that he has been involved in this kind of transactions before. The MT Tuma case during the Babangida administration, I remember when they said a tanker vessel load of petrol was missing. If my memory is correct, I think there were criminal charges at the time. I don't know how they concluded. So, but that's the background. And government has now decided we don't need middlemen. So when President Buhari is saying we will enable business, we are dealing with legitimate businessmen. And the period of percentage and brokerage is over. That is the truth. There's a court case, but there is no injunction. I went with the former Minister for Finance, Mrs. Adeosun, to negotiate with the China Exim Bank, and we brought up this arbitration issue before them, and they said it wasn't an issue for them, that they were going to deal. But in structuring the finance and all of this, of course, there'll be hurdles to cross. It's a big project. We have provisioned for our counterpart funding part of it in the 2018 budget. We have also done so, I believe, in the 2019 budget. And our contribution to even start the early works, planning the surveys, resettlement, and all of that is going on. The president has approved that part of that money should come from the Infrastructure Development Fund funded by the NSIA. So I don't expect that it will be a project without difficulties. It is big, and we are up to the challenges and to the difficulties. But it is our way of using infrastructure to enable business and to create work. That is similar to what you have happening on the second Niger Bridge. And when people say, oh, we haven't seen the bridge, a lot of things are going on inside the water, piling, cement, and all of that. For example, in terms of economic opportunities, the second Niger Bridge is going to require, I believe, 644,000 tons of aggregate. is going to require 21 million tons of cement, about 4 million cubic meters of sand, and about 2,000 tons of steel. Now, that is supply, production, manufacturing, transporting, labor. So the economy is on its way. And you will see from the last quarter GDP report, that is perhaps the first time in a long time, if ever, that oil prices dropped, oil production dropped, Nigeria's economy recorded a growth of 0.3% from 1.5 in quarter 2 to 1.8 in quarter 3. Let all of the economists take note. Something has taken. What we need to do is to double that capacity, that we can actually grow with minimum or reduce oil prices. Make no mistake about it, we still need the high oil prices to invest more today in infrastructure, build more roads, build more bridges, build more hospitals, schools, highways. But what we are saying now is that when oil prices drop in future, our economy should be resilient to absorb the shock. People should be able to get on with their lives because we will have invested the money in infrastructure. That is what President Buhari's Economic Recovery and Growth Plan is all about. An economy that lasts. Not one where we had growth for 7 years, for 10 years or 6 years of that 10 years, 7% growth, but it was being reported on every media. There were no jobs because the foundations of that growth were very brittle. It was commission agents, money moving paper, and becoming a billionaire overnight. This time, it will be produced by hard work, sweat, hard work, and brick and mortar.
Honorable Minister, I hope you'll be making your answers brief so that we can touch on very critical areas slated for this conversation. Now, let's go to the Katsina wind farm, where 10 megawatt project, 10 megawatts is expected. Now, that has reached advanced stage and still far from being realized, even after assurances by your ministry that it was to be delivered by the end of the year. So what's the situation now at the Katsina wind farm?
Challenges that you face in project delivery, sometimes your delivery dates slip negatively, sometimes they slip positively. But what is good to say about Katsina wind farm, and I thought that I saw some of the footages on your report. There are 37 wind farms, wind turbines there, if I recall, and at the moment, 15 are already operational, and they were turning when you showed the footage, if you can bring it up again. The remaining 22, we had issues with the contractor. They were demanding changes to pricing and all of that, and we saw that the contractor really was using a local person to do the work and taking all of our money. So we had to terminate that contract and use a local contractor who has actually been doing the work, who has been trained by them to complete it. And the Federal Executive Council has approved that. I think that was approved in October, late October. So, and what we also want to do, which wasn't part of the original plan, was to extend the power to the Musaya Adua University in Katsina. So it's not just enough to produce power. The 2 megawatt is being generated from that place already. And I believe Kano Disco is the beneficiary of that power already. So we plan to finish the remaining turbines and put the 8 on, and also dedicate some of it to the university as part of our energizing education project. So we have to run a line that goes to about 30-something kilometers, and that is what is causing some of the delays we have to deal with.
Now, power consumers in area market in Abia State have complained about being asked to pay 4,000 naira subscription fee. How do you react to this?
Of it for the first time on your program, we will look into it. What I do know is that when we started, we had a partnership with the governor of Abia State. We had a stakeholders meeting with the consumers. When I say we, government to government and the developer, because it's not government that is building that power plant. It's a private developer that we encourage to go in there so that we can at least prove and demonstrate that market men and women can get electricity. I am also happy to hear that I think what is going on is a pre-commissioning testing because there are 37,000 shops there that have to be connected, And I think we have done roughly about 3,000 to 4,000 from the reports I got at the end of November. So they knew what the terms were. We met our representatives and the businessman and the community and the Abia State representative met with them. We will solve the issues, but let me say very clearly and categorically, nobody at inception promised them that they will get power free. Nobody serves electricity free in any part of the world that I know. Somebody has to pay for it. Electricity is not free. So, and perhaps in relation, we will share with them. We know how much they were paying before we advise and encourage the developer to go there. They were paying roughly 10.5 million naira a day for 4 hours electricity provided by thousands of small generators. Now they confirm rather that the electricity that they have tested is stable. And how can that then be free when the one that was 4 hours was costing the whole market 10.5 million naira a day?
Looking at the alternative to the sources of power, coal, for instance, is an option, and we should as well complement other conventional sources. What is the government doing in this direction?
Again, as you know, electricity has been privatized. Most of the power plants that I'm talking to you about that we are completing, we are started, and we are trying to complete them. So we are encouraging private businesses to go into generation. There is one very possible developer who already has a coal mining license. He already has a power generation license. He has a site. And what he's trying to do now is to complete a power purchase agreement, which is the document that enables you then raise capital to do so. We are close to seeing that happen. We have factored in coal into our energy mix as we will use solar, as we will use hydro, as we will use gas and other sources. Coal provides an enormous opportunity, again, around the coal belt of Nigeria in the southeast and in the north-central area of Kogi and thereabouts for mining, which is another enabler of jobs and employment. So we will see some of that happen. There are other interests that have not advanced like his, but in the fullness of time, you will see it. But it's important to also let people know that producing coal power takes longer time to deliver than probably a thermal plant that uses gas, where you just need the pipeline because you need constant mining of coal. You need accessibility to water for cooling. You need conveyor belts to take the coal from the mines into the plant and the boiler room and all of that. So, but it will happen.
How is the federal government pursuing the power purchase agreement signed under China-Africa International Cooperation Committee with regards to renewable energy in Nigeria?
That's new on me. There are departments of government that represent us at some of these international meetings and fora where memoranda of understandings and all of that are signed. But what I know is that there's a government policy for renewable energy. There's a government policy to support the deployment of solar systems, solar panels, lithium batteries, and all of the enablers for delivering solar. There is also a government policy, and I think I should take this opportunity because there's some misunderstanding in the public about the import duty. There is actually a zero import duty for solar parts that are brought in and assembled here. But if you bring the system fully assembled from outside, you pay, I think, a duty of 5%. So the reason behind that is that even if it is just bringing in the parts and assembling them here, President Buhari wants to see young men and women, Nigerian boys and girls, men and women, engaged in doing something with their hands so that they can get employed. And so that has been causing some misunderstanding that some people say, oh, on one hand is zero duty, on another hand is 5%. The clarification confirmed to me by my colleagues, the Comptroller General of Customs and the Minister of Finance, is that if you bring in fully assembled systems, you pay duty because you have taken the jobs away from Nigeria. But if you bring in bits and pieces and parts, CKDs to be assembled here, you are bringing jobs here, we will give you duty zero so that our people can benefit.
Now, what will be the final question on this conversation segment? From our investigation, it does appear that there seems to be a stable power in the last couple of months, and many Nigerians have attested to that. What will you attribute that to?
The commitment of Mr. President, his Vice President, his economic team, my colleagues in the Federal Executive Council, and all of the very determined businessmen and women in the power value chain who are working hard to deliver on the possibilities that we see. It is also a faithful implementation of the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan. We are not yet at stable power. We will get there, but we are not yet there. And as many of the power plants you have highlighted and some that you have not discussed, like Gurara, Dadinkowa, Afam, and so on, Common Stream, Kaduna, we will be within touching distance. So, but it's important to say that we have walked our talk. And it is also important to highlight that this is in dry season. And two things are happening. They are not achievements for us. They are just demonstrations that we can fix this country. Our methods are better, and our manpower is far superior. Two things: stable power, reliable power, and reliable power experience in dry weather, in harmattan, in heat. And that doesn't mean there are no challenges, and we'll continue to respond. And also, at this time of the year, there is fuel supply. And that just shows that our methods have worked. And we can only get better from here. We can't go back from here.
At this point, we'd like to thank you for your time and, of course, what we've been able to explain this evening on Weekend File. Thank you indeed for finding time to be part of our program tonight. With the Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Babaraji Fashola, has been talking to us on the development trajectory of the power sector between 2015 and now. This is Weekend File. We'll take a short break and we'll be back very shortly.